Hey there, this is Ask the Expert. I'm Ted Craig, editor of Restoration and Remediation Magazine. My guest today is Andrew Titley of Prism Specialties. Andrew, why don't you introduce yourself, tell us what you do and what the company does.
Good morning. Again, I'm Andrew Titley, and I am the president and owner of Prism Specialties, San Francisco Bay Area. And we are experts in specialty contents restoration. And in our case, we define that as electronics, textiles, 4 categories: electronics, textiles, artwork, fine art, and documents.
Okay. Let's start with the electronics. People's lives today, a lot of ways are their electronics. What changes have you seen in people's concerns about about getting their electronics restored and returned to them in something close to what they were like before the event?
Yeah, I think what we find is that, first of all, people don't think it's possible. I think when someone has, and I'll speak mostly today about the effects and damage from fires.
Sure.
Although we do clean and restore items affected by other peril, such as water or vandalism and such. But the majority of what we do is fire related, and the vast majority of damage from fires is from smoke and soot. And most people will quickly and immediately get on and Google effects of smoke and soot. And what they'll find is that there's a lot of information out there that's saying once it's been damaged that way, you cannot use it anymore. It will fail. It's not going to work. And there's a lot of truth to that. But again, that's why we're in business, and that's because Prism Specialties specializes in cleaning and restoring those things by virtue of a variety of proprietary techniques and chemicals and such. But in particular, what we do differently than most anyone else in the business is that we actually don't just wipe down the outside, we actually open them up. And so I think the concerns that these folks have when their items are affected by smoke and soot is valid, and that the long-term effects can be primarily failure of those electronics if they're not cleaned and restored properly.
So you're telling me that the people on the internet actually know less than experts in the field when it comes to cleaning up content like that.
Imagine that. Imagine that. Right.
That has to be, I've opened up electronics before. It has to be, well, just opening them up though is tricky, right? These days, because a lot of them have, proprietary screws and things like that. I know talking to our IT people, some electronics can be pretty hard to get into. So it must require a lot of training and a lot of different techniques just to open them.
Yes, and that's a good point. I think we, as a company with our level of experience, we as a franchise system have over 30 years of experience, and it's not without actually damaging some clients' items over the many, many years have we had to learn the hard way that opening them up is literally one of the ways that will damage things more than anything else, literally more than the smoke or soot. So yes, we have to have every set of tool known to man, whether it's a star screwdriver or, because you're right, not only are the screws proprietary, but the way, and in particular where we see this is on television sets. Television sets, every manufacturer screws the back on differently. And so every single one, honestly, there's very few times that we see the same TV twice within maybe 6 months, and we're doing TVs all the time. So you're constantly having to be very careful, and in many cases you cannot use power tools, otherwise you will damage the hardware when you're opening them up. So yes, that's correct.
These days, with more folks working at home, do their electronics become an even bigger concern? Because it's one thing if you lose your television, it's another thing if you lose your work laptop and everything. Some major project you were working on is gone.
That's correct. Yes, I would say in general, as a society, we have become much more reliant on electronics, in particular, the things you're referring to, which is our day-to-day devices, whether it be a laptop, a tablet or a phone. So yes, we are far more dependent on these things. Usually in our business, when a work laptop is affected because the insured doesn't own it, they'll have to go to their work team to get that done, but we'll take care of all the other things that are affected. In a home office situation, what you find that we will take care of, though, that the person owns is a printer. That's a big one, because especially even still from the pandemic, there's a lot of supply chain issues. A printer that may have otherwise been declared not restorable simply because it's not cost effective now needs to be restored because people are having trouble either getting the ink or the printer itself. And so we are finding ourselves restoring more items as a result of simply supply chain shortages. But other things are telephones, printers, docking stations, monitors. These are things that oftentimes the client themselves owns, and they need them to get back up and running quickly. Yes.
Boy, that supply chain just keeps popping up all over the place in unexpected
Yes.
ways. Huh?
Yeah, that's correct. Good point. Yeah.
Another big issue is these days is inflation. And I want to get to the next area that you work in.
Sure.
As a result, art.
Sure.
Art is more than just decoration. Sometimes it's also an investment for people. Are you seeing, how do your clients view those items, and how do you work with them to do both, to restore the appearance and also the value of the item?
Yeah, that's an interesting point. So just a bit of history. When we started this franchise 8 years ago, we were just doing electronics, but similar to the way that our franchisor evolved, we kept hearing from our clients, hey, you guys do such a great job in electronics. Do you know anybody that can help us with our art? And so rather than simply saying, well, we're not sure or whatever, we decided, yes, we're going to work and figure out how to do art. Now, fine art itself, in our case, includes a lot of things. It's not just, although the majority is, items that are framed, oil on canvas painting, right? That is the majority. However, there's a lot of other things that qualify. And the thing that I find that probably the second most is collectibles. Things like baseball cards. There's a lot of signed memorabilia, jerseys, hats, things that, or posters. We've done quite a bit of that kind of work where it's irreplaceable. So for the most part, an insurance company is going to say, if it's something that you could just go on Amazon and get a new print of it, they're not going to pay us to clean it, and that's okay. But what we're doing is we're restoring irreplaceable items. And that can include keepsakes, even, somebody in the family who's an artist who's now since passed. We are really restoring people's, the things that are most important to them. And so I'd say this is the part about our business that we find to be one of the most satisfying, because we are returning things to people that they otherwise thought were lost for good. And it's quite amazing what we can restore.
What was something you maybe thought you couldn't restore, but it seemed like a challenge, and then you were able to get it back to its previous condition or close to it?
Yeah, that's a great question. Mostly, there's a couple things. One, there are things that are either so completely blackened by soot that people say they're ready to throw it away. I've walked into a home that has had of course, those are things that are higher up on the wall. And I've walked into homes where people have pulled off the walls things they think that we can help them with. And they'll leave the things that are just completely blackened. And I'll say to them, what about that? What about that? And they'll say, well, clearly that's not restorable. And I'll say, no, I think we can do it. And so those things that are usually given up for gone, we can at least take a look at. But the other thing that we can do, and we quite effectively at Prism Specialties, is we're able to restore things that have been damaged beyond just smoke and soot, but cut, punctured.
Okay.
So we can really truly repair tears in art and punctures and real damage. through a variety of things, including repairing the canvas and then touching up the paint. But I'd say the thing that we have repaired that really comes to mind is this very ornate statue from Asia with very fine, statue pieces that had broken, and it seemed very difficult. And it's taken us a long time to essentially create mold that we then, so we remold the pieces that were broken because there otherwise were in shards. So you mold it from a piece that's still together, and then you create the new piece. And so we've really done some incredible things in the art world as well.
Any unusual collectibles that leap out in your memory?
Well, a lot of it is things from sports stars that I believe we've done. Tom Watson had signed both a golf ball and a hat for one of our clients from Pebble, and it was right there from Pebble Beach on the last tournament that Tom Watson won. That one does come to mind, and I know there's quite a few others.
The golf ball, was it a white golf ball?
It was, yeah.
So that that must have looked like quite the challenge coming in.
Yeah, it was, because it was old.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's the other thing. Some of this, just over time, the material becomes more fragile, correct?
That's correct. Yeah, if it's not stored properly. Yeah, things can age such that we can only restore them to a certain condition. Now, I will say that, proudly, I can tell you that many times we'll restore things although the standard by which we are held by the insurance company who pays us is to restore to what's called pre-loss condition, as many of us in the industry know. However, in the end, because of the techniques we need to use in order to just get smoke and soot or the damage from the peril off, we end up cleaning it better than it was before. So clients end up being really pleased by the work that we do.
Excellent. You must have a staff with some very strong skills. How do you find folks who can do things like, mold to do that sculpture repair, or to get the soot off of a golf ball or things like that? How do you find people with that sort of skill?
Well, I'll start by saying it's not easy, especially in this world of hiring today. I think across the industry, it's hard to find good people. The area that's not quite as difficult is hiring in the art teams, as an example. The reason is there's a lot of people who have art degrees and interest in art and art experience that really can't find jobs in that field, so they do other things. Now, the thing that I'd say, the one thing that we believe is most important that we look for when hiring is somebody who's got is very handy and very curious. So we interview for curiosity. And by the way, it's not just in the area of art. It's truly important as well when it comes to electronics, because a lot of times, as we talked previously, if you're not curious about how to open something or how to repair things or how to clean, you will damage it. And so it's important that you have that level of curiosity for anyone.
How do you do that? What sort of questions do you ask to sort of try to determine their level of curiosity?
We find out what's the most recent thing. We just ask, what's the most recent thing that you've taken apart? What's the most recent thing that and you can tell by their response time, frankly. Now, we're not completely critical of all that, but you can feel it, you can sense it in their excitement when they talk about how not only what it was and how recent it was, but how they did it. Because when somebody finds success at that, it's really pleasing, because we're not taught to, we're not taught to go out and repair a VCR or a TV or a computer. And it's the people who figure out, well, how to do this. I'm going to figure it out myself. And, as well, I will say too, that many people, just as long as you have the curiosity to seek it out by, frankly, going onto YouTube, there's a lot of YouTube videos that we too rely on. We post some as well. We have our own channel where we'll post some repair options as well to show how we do it.
Great. And now the other area you touched on is documents. What does that entail?
Yeah, the majority of document restoration that we do is going to be in the area of wet documents.
Right.
Yeah, so it involves, first of all, and by the way, this applies to every area, to properly inventorying, photographing, and categorizing any item that we're going to take off site and clean and restore ourselves. Even if documents had gotten smoky and sooty, in a lot of cases, documents tend to have also gotten wet by sprinklers and that kind of thing. So the first thing is to dry them. Depending on how quickly we can get to them, we can either freeze dry items or we just dry them in a drying room that we have here in our facility. It dehumidifies the air in this small chamber that we have, this room essentially. And so that's the first part. And then you get these documents to be able to, once they dry, you can then peel them apart. And then a lot of it reproduction, depending on how wet they are, it can literally be ironing documents and deodorizing them because the deodorization process also has the effect of killing mold, because you will get mold
right
on documents that you won't necessarily get on electronics, because mold needs organic compounds to grow. So that's one of the bigger issues you run into with documents is mold. And so we have the process by which we effectively kill those mold spores. Then our duty is to remove those dead mold spores because it's a contaminant.
So it's a very involved, labor-intensive process.
Exactly. Yes, it is. Yeah.
So much is digital these days. What type of documents do you mostly handle?
Today, what we're doing when we have these are old documents that are part of a company's, historical data system that were done before a lot of the current data, digital imaging that can and will be done. So one big, very, very large job is we packed out about, let's see, I think it was, 45, I believe, pallets.
Wow.
Documents, yeah. And 24 were from, were just literally file folders. And these are all from a construction company that had a huge storage room that was caught fire by the doorway. So again, none of the documents burned and the heat wasn't so bad, but it was hot enough that the sprinklers went off. So you get the top 2 or 3 shelves are really wet, but everything's smoky. So anyway, the answer to the question, it's historical data. And then a lot of it is doctors' offices, dental offices that have patient files that are old data that they have to keep on record for legal purposes.
That must create some issues for you with privacy and data protection then. How do you handle those?
Yeah, great question. So we have a process for doctors and offices that is HIPAA compliant. So depending on the size of the job, we may do some of that work here locally, or we have a large facility back at our franchisor, and we have a HIPAA compliant shipment that we're able to observe by hiring a certain kind of vehicle and transportation service, which locks everything, and then it goes from our hands back to their hands without anyone touching it along the way. So because we understand and observe HIPAA compliance through the process, whether it be done here locally or back at our headquarters. But yeah, it's got to be observed.
Andrew, a couple of direct questions for you. What got you into the restoration business?
Yeah, I'd reached a point in my professional career where I was looking to do something different than technology. I was a technology guy, And I was no longer satisfied and enjoying that work. So first and foremost, I'd learned through a number of experiences that I wanted to be an independent business owner. So I looked at a number of opportunities, and this one really struck me because it felt as though I was able to help people to recover items and things, and frankly recover some semblance to their lives. So a little bit of that feel good notion there, but also helping the economy, or I'm sorry, not the economy, but helping our world by not throwing so much away. Because
Oh, sure.
the biggest ecosystem is the word I meant to say. The biggest sort of competitor, if you will, in our business is the trash can. A lot of stuff, even if it is determined to be not restorable, we dispose of it properly, make sure it's all disposed of in a way that's ecologically sound. So to answer the question, it's a combination of having my own business, doing things right by people, and doing things right by the world. But then lastly, I'd say what I'm doing is kind of a niche, and it's a bit unique. And so I felt like it was different enough that it would really maintain my interest. And it
And it
has.
has.
Yeah, for sure. Yep.
Great. Well, you've answered all of my questions. Is there anything else you would like to add?
No, I appreciate the opportunity. I would like to say that, as Prism Specialties across the nation, we feel that we're doing a really good job of taking care of people's items and providing a service that is invaluable both to the insurance companies and to people who've had an unfortunate event in their lives.
Great. Excellent. Well, thank you, Andrew, for joining me today. We will talk to you again soon, I hope.
Yes, thanks, Ted. I appreciate it.